I used to think scandals only happened in bigger companies, the kind you read about in headlines, not the kind where you know everyone's birthday and share break room coffee. Turns out, the smaller the space, the louder the secrets echo. Our office was a glass fishbowl, 30 desks, one manager, too many whispers. On the surface, we looked perfect. Productivity charts framed on the wall, motivational quotes above the printer. But under all that team synergy, something darker was brewing. It started with a laugh. That's always how it starts, right? Just a laugh between our director, Colin, and one of the project leads, Melissa. She was smart, sharp, always 2 steps ahead in meetings. He was charming in that polished HR-approved kind of way, always first to compliment, last to take blame. At first, I didn't think much of it. But then little things started shifting. She got looped into meetings that didn't involve her projects. Deadlines bent for her, approvals sped up. Meanwhile, the rest of us were getting gentle reminders about efficiency. Then one morning, a coworker slid me a printout. A calendar invite. Colin and Melissa, every Thursday at 4 p.m. Subject line, review session, duration, 2 hours. No one else invited. She laughed it off when people teased her. He deflected. But the air changed. Even the interns noticed the tension whenever they walked in together. I wasn't trying to expose anyone. I just wanted to survive the weirdness. Because when people in power start breaking rules for each other, everyone else pays the price. By week 6, the favoritism was blatant. Her budgets got rubber stamped. My team's requests disappeared into pending review. When I finally asked about the discrepancy, Colin smiled and said, "You worry too much about fairness. Focus on results." That night, I stayed late, half out of spite, half out of survival. Around 8 p.m., I heard laughter down the hall, the kind that doesn't belong in fluorescent lighting. Their voices. I froze. I told myself it wasn't my business. But curiosity, mixed with injustice, is a dangerous cocktail. The next morning, Melissa walked in wearing a confidence I hadn't seen before. Not arrogance, something more dangerous. Untouchable energy. Like she'd been handed the cheat codes. Soon after, Colin announced a new initiative, peer leadership development. Guess who was appointed to lead it? Melissa. And guess whose workload doubled because of it? Mine. I tried to ignore it. I really did. But resentment has a way of slipping into your posture, your tone, even your emails. I started keeping a log, every irregular approval, every double standard. Not for revenge. Just for clarity. Because when truth starts twisting, documentation becomes oxygen. 3 weeks later, everything imploded. Colin's wife showed up. Not to surprise him. To confront him. In the lobby. In front of half the office. Security tried to de-escalate, but words like affair and betrayal aren't easy to quiet. I watched from my desk, heartbeat in my throat, while Melissa hid in the restroom. The scene lasted maybe 5 minutes, but the fallout lasted months. Hour went into damage control, emails about professional boundaries and rebuilding trust. Colin took personal leave. Melissa was temporarily reassigned. And the rest of us were left pretending productivity could patch what gossip had already shredded. But the story didn't end there. Because a week later, Colin came back. Different tone. Different agenda. He wasn't the charming boss anymore. He was cold, clipped, calculating. And suddenly, everyone who had witnessed too much, including me, was under scrutiny. That's when I realized, the affair wasn't the scandal. The retaliation was. When Colin came back from personal leave, the air in the office shifted from tense to toxic. He didn't make eye contact anymore. Meetings became interrogations disguised as check-ins. Every compliment felt like bait. 2 people quit in the first week of his return. He called it natural turnover. The rest of us called it escape. Then the subtle punishments began. Projects I'd led successfully for months were reassigned without explanation. Requests for overtime pay needed further review. My name was suddenly missing from department updates. At first, I blamed coincidence. But then I saw the pattern. Everyone who'd been in the lobby that day, who'd seen his wife shouting his name, was quietly being erased. Melissa came back around that time too. She was quieter, paler, always glancing over her shoulder. Rumor said she'd tried to end things, and Colin hadn't taken it well. Whether or not that was true, one thing was certain: she looked trapped. I tried to keep my head down. But when silence becomes compliance, guilt starts to rot from the inside. So I started keeping more than a journal this time. I kept receipts. Emails, memos, screenshots of schedule changes. Times, dates, witnesses. If you wanted to play chess, I was finally learning the board. One Friday afternoon, an email landed in my inbox with the subject line: performance review, immediate, no context. No warning. Just Colin an hour on the invite. When I walked into the conference room, Melissa was already there, eyes red, hands shaking. Colin sat across the table, calm, polished, pretending this was routine. He opened with, "We've received concerns about professionalism and team morale. Given your recent behavior." I cut him off. My recent behavior or my refusal to pretend this place isn't falling apart? HR shifted in her seat. Colin smiled that politician smile again. "Careful," he said quietly. "Attitude can affect employability." That's when I knew the meeting wasn't about performance. It was about silencing witnesses. He slid a paper across the table, some half-baked, corrective action plan. 3 signatures were already on it. Mine was the only one missing. I didn't sign. Instead, I pulled a small folder from my bag and placed it on the table. Inside, printed emails, timestamps, screenshots. "You might want to review these before we discuss my professionalism," I said. Our went pale. Melissa exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. Colin's expression didn't change, but his jaw twitched, the first crack in the armor. The meeting ended 5 minutes later with a vague promise to revisit the discussion. By Monday, HR scheduled a follow-up, without Colin. That weekend, I got a message from Melissa: "We need to talk." Not at work. We met at a diner 2 towns over. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. She told me everything. How Colin had threatened her job, how he tried to rewrite company records to make her look complicit, how he was deleting emails from the shared drive. I told her I already had backups. Her eyes filled with tears. For the first time, she looked relieved instead of afraid. We decided to do one thing: tell the truth, together. Monday morning, we sent a joint statement to HR and the regional director, attached with every document, every timeline, every discrepancy. Within an hour, my phone buzzed nonstop. Legal wanted meetings. Our wanted clarification. Colin wanted revenge. He stormed into my cubicle around noon, eyes blazing. "You think you know what you're doing?" he hissed. "I think I'm tired of pretending I don't," I said. The whole floor heard him snap, "You'll regret this." He walked away, slammed his office door, and by 3 p.m. he was escorted out, security, box in hand. But the story didn't end with his exit. Because corporate scandals don't just disappear, they echo. The next month was a blur of investigations. People were interviewed, files audited, HR quietly replaced. Turns out Colin hadn't just bent rules for Melissa. He'd been misreporting budgets, approving phantom overtime, funneling resources into consulting that didn't exist. Every breadcrumb led to another. And because of that one confrontation, the entire structure came down. Melissa transferred to another branch. Ours department head resigned to pursue other opportunities, and I, against every expectation, was offered Colin's position. I didn't take it. I didn't want to rule the ruins. I wanted peace. So I gave them a month's notice and left with my head high, my conscience clean, and a folder of every lesson I'd paid for in stress and sleepless nights. People still message me sometimes, new hires, old coworkers, asking, did that really happen? I tell them the same thing every time. It happened because no one stopped it sooner. It ended because someone finally did. If there's one thing I learned, it's this: affairs end. Power fades. Secrets surface. But karma? Karma has perfect attendance. And this? This was just part 1.